Legislation is the enactment of a law or a group of laws. The Historic Sites Act of 1935 was created to preserve the use of public historical sites. This includes buildings and objects of national significance, and the United Congress passed this act. There are some major reasons why the Congress decided to pass this act, one being that the National Park System needed a way to conduct surveys on historic properties for highlighting points in U.S. history. Another reason why this law was enacted was because of public education. By establishing museums, researching, and restoring, it allows it to be the ideal act for recognizing flaws and improving from that from an academic perspective. This act was the first step towards preservation as a government. Although it was briefly mentioned in previous acts such as the 1906 Antiquities Act, this idea gets put into full motion in the Historic Sites Act of 1935. What led up to the legislation was the desire for Congress to organize the vast amounts of historic parks at their own expense. An example of this act being effective at a local site is with the Honolulu Museum of Art and the Hawaii State Art Museum. In Section 2 of this act, it talks about preserving drawings and photographs in historical or archaeological buildings. By that, it also means museums. So by collecting and putting together all works of historic art, it is putting this act to use. In 1935, or the time where this act was passed, the United States had just recovered from the Great Depression. A large number of Americans were unemployed, but on the flip side to that, a national monument was built. It was the Fort Stanwix National Monument, so the passing of this act was definitely timely, considering what just happened. Personally, I think this act is good because it is the first act that goes into detail with preservation of historic sites and buildings. This includes developing public educational programs pertaining to historical buildings. One of the main features of this act is the whole idea of restoring, so rebuilding anything that has been previously damaged. While doing that, this act also talks about creating plaques to commemorate historical events. And I see fire